Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this series of membership growth webinars organized by the Bharat Scouts and Guides with the support of the Asia Pacific Regional Support Center and WASM. On this note, I would like to inform you all, our friends are joining in. While they're joining in, I would like to introduce the regular features of this webinar. You can find the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. In case you need to ask any questions, you can ask a question on the Q&A button, and our resource speakers will find an appropriate time to answer you the questions. And you want to respond something to the questions, you can type it out on the chat so that you can interact with our resource speakers. While we wait for other friends to join, I take this opportunity to give it to Mr. Krishnaswamy R, the Executive Director of Bharat Scouts and Guides, and the person responsible for membership growth in Bharat Scouts and Guides, to welcome our resource speakers of the day. Swami sir, over to you.
Good evening, friends. We are extremely happy to learn that today's webinar is oversubscribed. The basic reason can be governance is an issue in all associations in all levels. However, we will be concentrating to learn from our guest speakers for today what is good governance and how it has to work for membership growth. The speakers today, Mr. Goren has vast experience of looking after the administrative affairs of the National Scout Organization as Chief Executive. And now he is helping us from the Central Office of WASM as Project Manager for Membership Growth. He will be telling us why good government is important as far as membership growth is concerned. Mr. Param Palani has been with us for all the sessions, training programs of the state level membership growth coordinators. He got administrative experience of promoting the Scout Association of Malaysia and has been a member of the Asia Pacific and World Pool of Consultant for the WASM services. You may have many questions, but with due apologies, we would like to tell that we may not be able to answer localized questions if something you have, but administratively, as an organization, as an association, how we will be working and what is expected from all of us at different levels of the association. And we welcome our guest speakers. Over to Mr. Goren and Mr. Palani. Welcome, Goren and Palani. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear friends, it is a pleasure to be with you again. From my memory, we have already met with some of you in virtual meetings before. Good governance and strong organization are one of the key pillars that will make growth sustainable. And I'm looking forward today to spend an hour and talk with you on how we can enable good governance in everything we do and how we can work together to be better in securing sustainable growth. Param, would you like to say something before we start?
Hello, everybody. Hope you all are well. We will be doing it in two sets. First, Goran will be taking the initial part of it. I'll be jumping in between the three main pillars of growth. Good governance. After which, Goran will be concluding it. Looking forward to, hope you guys enjoy the webinar and hopefully it's knowledgeable for you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Param.
Back to you.
Just to highlight again, at any point, if you have a questions that you would like to raise, please use the question and answer tab. We have projected time in this webinar to come back if we can answer these questions. We will have also several interactive space where we would like to have your voice heard and you participating in this session. And again, as always, this session should serve as a knowledge, but also as a spark for something that can go beyond this hour and a half to 2 hours. And we are on your full disposal to support you with all your questions, needs, and requests after this session. Okay, I will share my screen. Let's start. Just on the beginning, I would like to go very shortly to summarize what are the objectives. So what are we going to talk about in this hour and a half is what is governance and what is the meaning of governance. We will try to understand what is the governance principles within the scouting context, to understand the importance of a national board or a state board as a governing bodies, and understanding good governance, how it contributes to our growth. How do we link this good governance with the growth that we are targeting? And in the very start, again, I will share just one resource that you can go back and look at it at any point, because you can correlate and connect with this resource at any time for everything we are talking. In front of you, you will see the 10 dimensions of the operations of our organization. So this comes from the global assessment tool, GSAT, that Wissam has developed, and it is the foundations on some of the aspects that we will be talking today. So when we say what makes one organization strong, in the end, if we spend a lot of mapping, and this is a result of a lot of work, we will come to these 10 dimensions. So NSO, who has a great, who meets all the institutional requirements. NSO, which has a good governance framework, have a great strategy plan. It has integrity in its management, have very good and engaging communication, has a lot of adults in scouting, good finance resources and good system to manage the finance resources, youth program, growth potential, and continuous improvement. And these 10 dimensions, you will see already that 4 of them are highlighted in red. You may remember these are also one of the key ingredients for growth that we were talking. So the adults in scouting, the youth program, the engaging communication and strategical framework, it is a must aspects that when we are talking about growth. And the governance framework is the next, which we are going to talk now, because that is the strong organization aspect. And when we say that governance framework, I will like to ask you, what do you understand by the word governance? And instead of Slido, I would like to invite you to use the chat function this time. I saw that you're good in this, and I see many people introducing themselves on the chat. So I would like to ask you on the chat to write, what do you understand by the word governance? What governance means for you? When you hear governance, we're talking about governance. Governance is important. We need to have a good governance. What is actually governance? And there is no wrong answer at this place. Everything you share, there is no wrong answer. Feel free to write, when you hear the word governance, what does this mean for you? Okay, we have the first one arriving. Proper administration and control. Beautiful. Governance means having control on one particular concept. Good. Managing things. Beautiful. It's about a system to follow up on, to implement. Governance is nothing but an administration. Okay, interesting. Managing of the organization. Okay. Standard procedures. Beautiful. Keep it coming. And when you read this, reflect on them, because I can tell you all of them are correct. Good governance is good administration. Okay, interesting. The action or manner of working of a state to rule over. Thank you, Nerai. I think this is very something that we will start. Adult and risk management. Good governance is a way of measuring how public institutions conduct public affairs and manage public resources in a preferred way. The actions on manner of governing a state, organization, etc. Governance means one person to control all over administration. Okay, this is a very good answers. Thank you, everyone that contributed so actively in this brainstorming. And I would like just to summarize 3 aspects that you just mentioned here. First is you said governance, it means making a proper management of a trust, of a resources, of a state. It means ruling or making sure things are going in the right direction. The second one that you mentioned is good communication. So being able to reach to the stakeholders, to involve everyone, and to make everyone moving on the right way towards the goals. And then I really like also the one that the couple of one who were focusing on establishment of the policies, the monitoring and the implementation, which connects again to someone monitoring or controlling system. You're amazing. I mean, answers are keep coming. So in short, there is a definition, and I don't like definition because all of you in the chat now contributed with better definitions because those are the ones that are relevant for you. But the definition is that the governance is a concern of systems and processes that ensure the overall direction, effectiveness, supervision, and accountability of the organization. Can you recognize? I believe you can recognize your answers here. So I would like you to focus on the words which are in bold. So we're going to talk about systems. We're going to talk about procedures, processes, which are taken in place to ensure the overall direction and to make our organization effective, to have a good supervision, and that we are accountable to someone. To who we are accountable? Can I again invite you now to use the chat function? To who we are accountable? To who we are accountable? To who do we respond for our action? Thank you, Wenxing. Our young people, our membership, our stakeholders. Beautiful. So who should do this supervision? Can you guess who is in charge of the supervision to make sure that we are effective? Head of the organization. Thank you, Kundu. Exactly. So good governance is about having the right people on the right places to do the right job, to make sure we have a system and processes that are being followed and respected, to make sure that these people are skilled to do this work, and that we are practicing good supervision, and we are accountable for any actions that we are doing. Why is this responded to growth? We will find out in the next moment. So in front of you, you will see now the matrix of what is the good governance. So when we say, if we want to have a good governance, this is what we mean. So you will see that here you have 8 or 9. There is few models, but these are the framework of the good governance. So the first one is the board and committees. So as you just mentioned in the chat, these are the people who are responsible to lead the organization, to govern. Second one is legal and regulator framework. We might have the best board, we have the best people, they are the most skilled ones, but if they don't have a proper rules of procedures that they need to work on, it is a very subjective, and everyone will work thinking that we know the best. That is why the second piece of the framework is the legal and regulation framework. The third one is the organizational structure. We can have the first two, but if we don't have a structure, we will always have conflicts on who is about to bring the decision and to who we are accountable in the end. Following on the fourth one is the policies and the procedures. So this is about frameworks that are telling us how we are doing things. Following this is the mentoring and internal control. We must ensure that whatever we are doing, we are reflecting upon it. Like, we are working great, everyone thinks we are great, but if we don't monitor it and if we don't have internal control, which regularly give us the feedback on what is the perception of the things that we are doing, we might go in the wrong direction. Following to this is the transparency and accountability. We must share everything we work. If we want to have decisions, we need to always include all the stakeholders which are relevant for this decision. And in the end, to share what decisions are being made. Transparency is a key aspect of the good governance. Then effective and efficient, and we will talk about this. This is the model of how we are working, that we are not spending 4 weeks of discussions to bring a decision, that we have a effective way of work, and that we are efficient with timely manner and with the resources that we have. And finally, to be inclusive and consensus orientated means that we are open for everyone, and that we are here with the same goal, to create a better world. And since we are all scouts, we are here towards the same mission. So we are working towards consensus and not towards disagreements. How this correlates with the work that we need to do towards growth, we will discover in a few slides. So as just a short summary, what governance is as a process, it involves a system of check and balances between owners and other stakeholders, so who will set the standard objective of accountability of the given organization. It is also about the leadership, the national boards that you just mentioned also in the chat, who are committed and will ensure fulfillment of what is our mission, and also protection of your assets. And guidance by the board, the governance is under the direction of the board. So who is in charge of making good governance? It is already clear. We can put it here. It is the leadership of your states, and then the leadership of the National Scout Organization. So what are the principles of good governance? Good governance is concerned with the establishment of a good legal, financial, and institutional environment. Why these three environments are important? Legal, because we need to work, whatever we are doing, we need to make sure it is under the legal framework of our country, that we are not doing anything against the legal norms, and that we are having here integrity also, and we are following the rules. Financial, because we need to properly manage our finances, and we need to build a solid finance organization. Solid finance organization means solid on the top level, but also solid on the state levels and solid on the scout groups. And institutional, to make sure that all this finance and all our programs and everything is being governed in a good way, and can facilitate the organization to grow. In order to connect this with the growth, I want to to just highlight the growing importance of the good governance. It's not something that it is good to have. Good governance is it's a foundation. When you're building if we're building a big a house now, it is the very foundation. So we need to have it is something that makes everything holds together. We can have the best youth program. We can have millions of adults waiting to work with young people. We can have all the money in the world. If we don't have an effective way to control all this, if we're not transparent, if we don't have the integrity, if we have misuse of the funds because no rules and procedures, if our committee does not work efficiently, this all will be this all will fail on the long term. So there is a need for more effective organizations if we wish to maintain the increased market share. So if you want to grow to more and more young people, we need to make sure we are strong as an organization and we have a strong governance. Stakeholders are asking more transparency and communication. All stakeholders that are working with us, even the parents, even the government, even the international donors, everyone would like to know what are you doing and what are you discussing on the national board meetings, on the state board meetings, and they want to hear about this. They want to know what are you working. There is increased competition and increased regulations, and we need to be on the top of the game and to make sure we are building and putting everything that we are doing on a very strong foundation. So here I will hand it over to my colleague Param, who will talk about the 3 pillars and how we can work towards good governance.
Thank you, Goran. Good afternoon again, everybody. Since Goran has gone through the overview of the strong organization, good governance, now let's focus on the 3 pillars of good governance. Before we go to that, I would like to inform that my presentation, this part of the presentation will tilt towards growth, a bit more towards growth. Yeah. So what are the 3 pillars of good governance? Yeah, policies and procedures is first one. An effective and efficient board, strategic vision and plan. So these are part of the entire ingredients of good governance. As Goran had mentioned earlier, there were 8 to 9 components which were there. These are the 3 pillars which contribute to good governance. Right, next slide. Okay, what makes an effective? We'll start off with the board first. Yeah, and we go to all our policies and procedures next. An effective and efficient board. Who is responsible for your governance? As Goran had indicated earlier, everything seems to be facing towards your board members. But is it totally true? Yeah. We must remember that although the ultimate responsibility of good governance of an organization lies on the board, but the board is not the only one who's responsible for this. The governance is not the role of the board members alone. It's also the responsibilities of all other levels of the organization. The next one, governance is also concerned with the way boards work with chief executives, staff, volunteers, service users, members, and other stakeholders to ensure that the organization is effective and properly run and meets the needs of each of the organization. Yeah. If you remember the last webinar we spoke about good communication, and this is part of it, where there must be a good working relationship and good communication. There must be a proper communication between the board and all the other members of the organization. Otherwise, there's no communication. And although the board is effective, but the decisions of the board is not carried forward to the other members, and therefore it will not be efficient enough to run the organization. So it's important that the communication and the working relationship between the board and all the other members is important. Next slide, Laura. That takes us to the role of the board here. With regards to this, we know that to a certain extent, the NSO puts focus and delivery of strategic priorities, direct shape of composition of board. What priorities established by the board? What does this actually mean? The composition of the board is very important. If you all have only a certain kind of members, meaning a certain gender, a certain age group, then the decisions made by the board or the strategic priorities made by the board will be towards one side of the spectrum and not a full spectrum. So for us to have a full spectrum, to have strategic priorities which are implementable to cause the NSO to affect everybody, then we need to have a wide scope of members. That means it's not just towards a certain composition only. That is important, because if we don't do this, then what's going to happen is you won't have youth participation. It is important that the board comprises with mixed gender and youth involvement, so that you have decisions made which are relevant and which the strategic priorities can be practical and useful for the current situation. Because strategic priorities are important, because without these strategic priorities, you will not have a target or certain goal towards, focus towards. We'll be coming to that on the next, in a moment. Back to the next, before that, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Okay, what we need to remember, I'd like to share at this point in time, I'd like to take a caption from the toolkit, yeah, which is important, I think. It is important to remember that if an organization is determined to grow, then the commitment should be owned in all levels of the organization, and it should be integrated in its strategies, annual plans, long-term plans, and its budgets. So it is important that whatever decisions made, it is important that it is a all-encompassing kind of thing. It's not just the board makes it, but it also has to be communicated to the next level. Yeah. Next slide, go ahead. Okay, this is a bit of resource material that you all would like to go into. Basically, this is basically on good governance, yeah? Good governance of national board. If you go into this resource material, you'll find that it discusses almost all areas of good governance. It talks about good governance of the board, values and duties, things like what needs to be done, induction, what is this? Induction of the members, the board members into the board. Yeah, how do you do it? What is the right process of going through this process and all these kind of things? It is important at this point in time for you to understand that this book can give you a lot of knowledge on good governance, especially the running of the organization, and also the toolkits there are very, very useful. Things like it gives you templates on self-assessment, satisfaction surveys, what to do, templates on bylaws, what you should have in your bylaws, and also your things like example policies. If you're going to have policies and all, what should be included in your policies. So I would advise you all to look at this good governance in national board toolkit. It's very useful for this purpose. Yeah. Next, go ahead. Okay, that takes us to the next topic of, so when we talk about growth and national level and national board, there are a few questions that we need to ask, because we are trying to relate this to growth. We need to realize that governance itself is one, and then you have growth. How do you interrelate these two? Because if without a proper governance, you can't establish good growth. You need to have good growth, good governance to establish good growth. the question that you might want to ask is, does your national board agree that there's growth? First of all, there must be ownership as to whether you need this growth to happen. If you need this growth to happen, then the national board, the NSO, has to first decide that this has to happen. Then next, do you have the growth strategies? Do you have a growth strategy as to how this thing is going to happen, be it in the regional level, in our case, the state level, national level? We need to know if there's a growth strategy in place, so that how do we go about this? So what kind of support do the local need? These are the questions that we need to ask. Are we ready to grow as an organization? Do we have the growth in mindset and willing to develop one? So these are the questions which we need to ask ourselves before we embark on this. But I believe BSG, Bharat Scout and Guide, has already taken the first few steps towards this. They've already established, the NSO is already very much into this. Otherwise, we won't be here today. And this is a very important thing, because with this kind of commitment, then the states will have to start looking at what is needed at the state level, and also at the district level. At every level, you need to see whether we are actually complying to these things. Okay, one of the key roles of the national board to ensure the whole organization feels involved is take ownership of the growth strategy, as I mentioned. That has already been done by BSG. Now, the next step is for all levels of the organization to take ownership too. With that, then we can all work together towards the moving towards more sustainable growth. Next slide. Before that, sorry, one step before that. So, sorry, one slide before that. Thank you. So as I mentioned just now, the strategy is one. The board can come up with all these plans and everything, but it also has to be communicated to all levels, as I mentioned. Only then can this work. The NSOs can, once the NSO starts distributing this information, the board starts distributing this information, then the necessary actions can be taken by all levels. Next slide. Next slide, thank you. A strong organization needs to be proper for all sections of the organization. Yeah, a strong organization is not only talking about growth, it is all. Like, for instance, we have already gone through a few series of webinars. We have talked about program, we have talked about communication. So when we talk about policies and procedures, it is not only with regards to growth or governance. Governance encompasses all aspects of our organization. So we need to have proper policies, procedures, standard operating procedures, SOPs in all levels, so that there's a proper flow and there's proper workflow. There's always a certain guideline policies to follow. Otherwise, there would not be a proper guideline policies. We'll be doing everything as we like. So to have a proper organization, a strong organization, is very important for us to have good policies and procedures. Having said that, it is very important that these policies are also documented in proper manner, so that it can go on to be disseminated to the next level. So there are a few questions that you need to consider here. At local group, tying this back to growth, yeah? If you have got proper procedures for growth, do you have proper procedures for growth? Do you have proper procedures for enrolling new members? These are the things that you need to ask. For instance, we can say, yes, we have proper procedures for enrolling members, but do you have an SOP? How easy is it for a member to join the organization? Is it difficult? Or is it easy? So there's a survey that we can do on this basis, right? There are a few questions that we can ask on this. We need to go on the basis that whether we need, sorry, where am I? Sorry guys, I'm a bit distracted because I have to work from home and I'm using my phone to work on. So sorry about that. Just bear with me for a while, yeah? So as I mentioned just now, growth happens at all levels, and to happen, the growth happens at all levels, and it needs to be, the policy is very important, because without the policies in line, then we are not able to communicate to the next level as to how membership can grow on. Next slide. Okay, talking about this, putting the necessary regional support, as I said, you need a proper organization, a proper procedure and policy to ensure that the membership or in any way, any sort of thing takes place, right? Here we are talking specifically on growth. So when we talk about growth, do we have the necessary structure in place to guarantee the continuous growth of the membership? Is there a right degree of support to the local groups? Okay, what kind of support do you think that we need to ensure that there must be this continuous support going on? What kind of support do you think that you need from the, be it from the the state or the NSO on this matter? What kind of support is needed by the individuals, the members who want to join? Is there sufficient support? What do you think that local groups need? What kind of support do you need to ensure this? Okay, you can use the chat group again to do this. Clarity? Clarity on the procedures, yeah. Any other support that the local groups will require to ensure that growth happens at the local level? Guidance, communication through proper channels, parents, motivation, resource support, proper admin training, yeah, that's good. Resource support, guidance, appreciation, training, information, good, encouragement. So basically, all of you have an idea. It's proper training, yes, awareness society. It's true. So all your answers are correct in a way, yeah? So what we need to realize is growth happens, yeah? It happens where young people are. So it happens everywhere. So for us to, your organization, for the organization to grow, you need this kind of information to be there, yeah, to have local support. So for that is the reason why you need policies and procedures, toolkit, training materials, such things. And these things need to be given to the local groups so that they have the kind of equipment to support, to encourage growth, and to continue with the membership development. Yeah. Next slide. All right. Okay, this is something that needs to be done. For instance, I mentioned just now, do you have a system? You're saying that you have all just now earlier you said what kind of support is needed, yeah? So you mentioned training, support from admin, motivation, and all those kind of things. So here you have the required action. This is something that you can work on to get an idea what is the required action to become a member. This is the process of becoming a member. So if you become a member in your organization or local group, how easy is it? What is the process that they need to take? What is the step that needs to take? So it gives you an idea of how difficult or how easy the process is. This will give you an indication whether your procedures and policies actually work and it needs to be improved. So you can use this like a survey for yourself to ensure that it can be something of a survey, so a guideline for you to come up with better policies and better procedures to improve it, so that you actually have a system that works efficiently. Next slide, Goran. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the NSO has allocated resources at national level to support the growth. This type of resources and support also reflected at local level. So this is something that you need to understand, that whatever material which has been provided at national level has to also be shared at local level, and this type of resources readily available, and this can be used for all at all levels. It need not be only applicable for national level, it also can be applicable for state, district, even school level, because this kind of resources which has been given for the support of growth is applicable across the board. It can be used by all levels of scouting. The NSO mechanism for the public to locate local scout group. Okay, this is something that you need to know. Do you have a mechanism for someone to join the local scout group? So if for instance, you are in a certain area, is there a mechanism for you to find? Is there an online presence? Is there somehow that this person can be, the person that's interested in joining scouting can join scouting? Again, is there a procedure for this? Is there a policy for this? Is there a system for this? These are things that you need to look into, because you have to make the process of joining easier. Recruitment, you can do everything that you can, but if you don't disseminate the information to the right people in the right manner, they might not know how to join it. So your presence is felt, but how do you join? You need to have to be able to communicate with the communities or in online presence or by any manner possible, right? So that there is some sort of communication. So all these are related to governance, because why? Because if you do not have all this, then your organization is not strong enough. Only if you have the proper policies and procedures, only then will you be able to do these kind of things. The NSOs, by doing this, then you're able to support not only state, but also local groups and also other levels of scouting. Yeah, next, go ahead. Strategic vision, yeah. Talking about strategic vision, this is something which is important in the sense that we can say that we have decided on going ahead with this, but the strategic vision is something that the NSO has to decide. The governance structure of the NSO. That means the NSO has to decide that they are deciding on this particular vision and plan, right? How is this done? It has to be done in your AGM or in your strategic planning, decided at your strategic planning level and taken for approval at the next level. So you must understand that this is something, strategic vision and plan is an important thing for us, because without this strategic planning, vision and planning, you will not be able to move forward. And resources implementation need to be put in place for yearly operation plans, so that every year you review, if not yearly, 2 years once or whichever, according to what you have decided on this. That means, say for instance, you have a strategic vision and you have a plan. That plan needs to be carried out within a certain period of time. And if the plan is not carried out within a certain period, there must be a monitoring system for this. And if it's not done, then it needs to be reviewed why it's not done and what is not. So regular monitoring of this needs to be done, be it in any level of the NSO, especially in this case, the membership growth target. So if you have an annual membership growth target, and you need to review it and ensure that every year your membership annual target is met. If you fail to meet this, then you need to review why this is not done. So it is important for you to have a vision, strategic vision, and a plan. By us doing this, only then can we know whether we are achieving our target and are we going towards where we are supposed to go. Without having this, then we are unable to do the necessary steps to ensure that we rectify it on time, so that we do not lose out on meeting the target in time. So by reviewing this regularly, we'll make sure that it is all done in order. Right. As I said earlier, this whole thing is important because if you do not have the necessary three pillars, meaning a good board, the policies and procedures and strategy and plans, then you will not be able to determine all these necessary steps towards achieving a proper growth and proper governance towards the national organization. Yeah, with that, I'll pass it back to Goran. Thank you, Goran.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for this extensive elaboration, Param. I think we wrap it up the theory on the three pillars, why it's affecting, why it's important to work on good governance and continues to improve ourselves. Just an overview and a summary of all the things that we talked before we make this session a little bit interactive, and I can see already there is some question. When this effective governance or good governance happens is when we have a good board, right people, skilled people, diverse people who represent different stakeholders. So young people in the board, equally girls and boys in the board, and skill diversity, like from management, from law, from education department, from all the areas of knowledge that can contribute to effective running an organization. When we have these people properly trained on for the roles that they need to perform, we will have a good governance in the first pillar, so having a good leadership. The second one is that when we have an overview of the management and the effort. So if we have the good procedures, if we have the policies in place, check and balances, we will make sure that everything we do is being monitored and is being done properly. And the interplay between the board and the management is where the strategy is. If we don't have a plan, we are planning to fail. So when they know what to do, when they have the check and balances and they are skilled, we will have a good governance and will be supporting our organization towards growth. I would like just before we move on the last phase of this webinar, on the more interactive one, to go to the questions. So we have one question from anonymous attendee. We have a certain problem here regarding growth from our grassroots level. That some of our stakeholders purposely deprives the youth if that particular person is wanting to grow. How can we overcome this problem? Is there anyone who wants to answer on this question from my colleagues of Bharat Scouts and Guide, or maybe you, Param?
Goran, I think that question is like a growth of a person. It's not like a question concerning the growth of the organization. So it doesn't use any scope for us to answer, because a youth, if in that particular person is wanting to grow. So definitely we are discussing on the organization's growth. So this may not be a particular thing to tell. Then second part is, a person, if he wants to grow, he can show his ability to support the organization. Ultimately, the association depends on individuals. So the association will not be able to tell no to anyone who shows that he is able to contribute. Okay. I think Param and Goran can add to it.
I think that's a valid answer. If the question was different, I can ask the same person to address it better in organizational aspect, and we will come back to answer any questions that will arrive.
There's some hands showing. I think some questions coming in. Shuddata Sakar.
Adu, could you open their...
Razia Begum.
Adu, could you open Razia ma'am to speak?
Yeah. Razia ma'am, you can unmute and speak. both Sujata Sarkar and Razia ma'am, we have given you access to speak. You could unmute and speak. Maybe no, sir, they are not speaking.
Okay, we can come back later. Not a problem. Okay, what I would invite you now in the last part of this webinar is to see what we need to know. So like where we need to go now. Having this knowledge that we shared now in the last 30-40 minutes. We talked about the policies and procedures, an effective and efficient board, and that we need to have a strategic vision and plan. So I would like to invite you to reflect on answering what policies and procedures we need to support us to grow. So what is already in place and what we need to work. What can we improve in our governance, in our boards? And finally, what support structure we have in place and what we need to build in order to support the implementation of the strategy. And how we're going to do this is we're going to use Padlet. I will be sharing my screen and I will also put in the chat, I will put the link for the, just give me a second. And you can follow this link to the Padlet where I would like to ask you to answer on these questions. So this is the time for you to reflect. So we have the 3 pillars. This is how we do good governance. So where we are now in your state, in your context, what procedures you have and what you need to put to develop. What is the challenges of your board? When we're talking about board, I hope we understand this is the people who are governing your state, who are governing your organization. There is names which alternative can be used like a committee, chairmanship, and other forms, but it is the role that is important. So these are the people, it's the leadership. It's your state leadership, it's your national leadership, it's the leadership of the organization that you are coming from. So please follow the Padlet. I will share the screen so we can you can see the Padlet and we can see your answer coming on the Padlet, so you can already see.
You have to click the link on the chat where it says padlet.com. Then you will come to this page, what you're seeing on the screen. When you look at the question, what policy and procedure we need to support us grow, you can see a plus mark there. You click on it and you can type your response there. Yes, there you can type your response and it will be visible.
So take your time. We will take around 5. If need, we will take even more time. There is 4 questions which are on the Padlet. The first 3 were from the pillars. So what policies and procedures we need to support us to grow. The second one is focused on the boards or the committee. So what we can improve, what we need to improve in our boards. And the last one, what support structures we have in place and what we need to build. This is something you already answered on in the chat, and I saw a lot of them saying what the resources we need. The resources, we need clarity, we need clear communication. Try to put now a summary here based on all the reflections that you see there. What is the structure? Not when you say resources, put this from a structure position. So if you think that the scout groups on the local level need resources, What means this? Does this need, we need to make a funding framework for growth for the local groups, or we need to develop a framework where they can connect with local government to use their resources and the logistics. So try to put it from a perspective of a structure and framework. And finally, there is a fourth question. What would you like to see happening in the next 6 months? General, out of any category. We are talking here about governance and making our organization strong. With good governance and strong organization is supporting the growth. So what would you like to see happening in the next 6 months? Thank you. I can see already a lot of feedbacks coming in. And I see several questions and answers. The first question is coming, it's a legal, financial, and institution. Last time I had asked the question about the environment of the organization. Sir, can you throw some light on the environment of organization, both internal and as well external, by considering the above 3 principles? Does anyone want to answer this? I would like to answer as well in the end, but maybe Param or someone from Bharat Scouts and Guides, maybe you also want to give an answer to this question.
Maybe Gaurav, you answer this and later we may supplement it.
Okay, so we have the time now, since all of you can go on the Padlet and respect, regardless of me bumbling and commenting on things, you can contribute to this Padlet, and we will use these inputs to build what we do next. So I will use this opportunity to comment a little bit longer. I will say that for each of the 3 ones that you mentioned, and this is a very good question, and thank you for putting it here. I think it's a specific approach should be having for all of them. So as you said, having an environment for growth from a legal aspect, it means that, and Param already mentioned this, it means that you have the procedures for young people to become members very easy. You have systems for making a scout group to register itself in an easy way. So this is about what are the obstacles that make your organization grow. Does your local groups need to register in the state? Do they need to register in your national headquarters or on your state headquarters? How this registration looks like? Is it complicated? And if you remember, Param shared this framework, why it's needed. Like I have met a lot of time that we are overcomplicating the things, and we are making procedures which are too complicated, and people are discouraged to establish a new group. Working on this to make it more appealing for people. Okay, let's start a group, and to legally be easier can help you grow. Financially, finance are always needed. We have seen that they are not the only thing that can make growth. So finance, having all the money in the world will not help you grow. If you don't have a good image, people will say, I'm sorry, you're not attractive for me as an organization. If you don't have a youth program, same, finance will not do the job. But finance can help a lot. And having a financial environment for growth also is helping you to by many, there is a couple of ways on how you can build environment for growth through financial supports. And this is about partly about the local structures. So having our resources for the local groups to start growing, it can be something that is a finance. We have best practices from NSOs who are partnering with the local municipalities. With in India, it can be the state with the state government who are advocating for in placing part of the budget for scout activities. And when the scout groups are using this budget, or it doesn't have to be a finance directly, it can be space, it can be people, it can be goods, it can be transport, it can be food, all resources. When they are entitled by these resources, for them it's much easier to organize the scout events, and also to reach out to the scouts. And finally, there is something very particular, especially in the school-based scouting model, which you have, by having inspiration or motivation for the adult teacher to work with more young people, and to recruit more teachers to become scout leaders by supporting them with additional benefits in their employment or additional incentives. So this is one of the example of how financial environment can contribute to growth. And I think it was legal, financial, and institutional. For institutional, it is the thing that we talked. It is about having transparency. When people know what is happening, when people are shared with the communication, they develop ownership towards the process of organization. When someone is left behind and not informed, and without opportunity to participate in any decision making, this person is not interested in and it's not building ownership towards organization. And this is why sometimes we need to understand that we need to abandon the perception of the hierarchy that we have, and we need to understand that scouting belongs to everyone, and to give opportunity to everyone to be part of the decision and everyone to be informed. This is significantly strengthening our organization. That are my short, long answer.
We have a couple of participants who have raised their hands to express their questions or ask the questions. Maybe allow them to talk, Goran.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Ramlata madam, you can unmute and ask your question. Kumar madam, you can unmute and ask your question. We have enabled you to talk. You can just unmute and speak, please.
So I think we are not reaching to her.
I think they are able to hear us.
We can't hear. They're not saying anything.
They're not saying anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Swamisa, you can ask them, tell them about the Padlet in Hindi one, so that they can go and ask their, put their responses on the Padlet.
जो पैडलेट आपके जो राइट साइड में चैट्स में एक लिंक दिया हुआ है, अगर आप वो चैट वाला लिंक में जाएंगे, मतलब कैन यू शेयर इट विद द अटेंडीज अगेन? आई थिंक ऑन दिस वी आर सीइंग इट ओनली टू पैनलिस्ट. Padlet, this one shared is no?
Okay, we'll share it again.
तो सभी को आपके जो चैट में जो padlet.com की लिंक आ रही है उसमें आप क्लिक करेंगे तो ये बोर्ड आपके सामने आएगा. आप उसमें आपके आइडियाज टाइप कर सकते हैं. इसके अंदर 4 चीजें हैं. कि what policies and procedures we need to support us grow. हमारे संस्था का संख्या बल बढ़ने के लिए कैसे नीतिगत कार्य चाहिए. What can we improve in our governance? हमारे जो समितियां हैं कार्यों में कैसे हम सुचारू रूप से उसे चला सकते हैं, और हमारे पास जो स्ट्रक्चर अभी अवेलेबल है और इसको दुरुस्त करने के लिए हम क्या कर सकते हैं. अगले 6 महीने में आपके एरिया में संख्या वृद्धि के लिए आप क्या चाहते हैं.
Okay, I see one more question. Is growth of an organization is not really on growth an individual? And this is a very also a little bit more philosophical nature of question, but it's a very good one. And I see Madhu, you want to answer on this question?
No, Goran, you can go ahead and answer.
Maybe Param, or I am a person who wants to talk too much, so I will answer for sure. But if any else wants from the panel to answer before me,
Goran can contribute later. See, an organization is made of individuals. Until and unless an individual decide to grow, the organization cannot grow. But the problem, what happens in some organizations is an individual uses the organization or association for his growth. That becomes conflict of interest between people in the organization. That ends up destruction of the association. The person who made the question has a very valid reason to make it. Yes, an individual's growth is essential for the growth of the organization, but with the caution that the person should not make association a tool for his growth. Goran, you can add.
okay,
I'd like to
go Param.
Thank you. I'd like to agree with Mr. Krishnaswamy on that, because what happens is most times, the growth of an individual in the organization has to be part of, they have to contribute towards the growth of the organization. They shouldn't be thinking of their own personal growth before the growth of the organization. It has to be the organization grows, the individual grows together with the organization. That's what I feel. Yeah, Goran?
Very well said, Param. I could not agree more. There is two components. One component is that we are bringing people in scouting so they can grow. So this is one, but this is part of the mission, especially the young people. We want to enable them reach their full potential, and this is also for the adults in scouting to grow through as an individual, and grow with skills, to grow with understanding, to grow with better attitude, to grow with knowledge, but through their deeds, and not for personal gain, but for the mission of scouting, to create a better world. So when we are saying we want you to grow as an individual, we don't say this as a position success, but as something that you need to do to return it back. But from the second context that I understand it is that if individual is growing as a person, he will contribute to the growth of the organization, and the organizational growth does not. The result is obviously it's easier to measure it with numbers of new members came in scouting, but with his skills as you as an individual is growing, if you are replicating this growth, that you are experiencing it personally to the organization, and if you're giving it to the organization, you're helping scouting grow. If you grow by learning new skills, and you got you build a successful career, you can use your career to connect scouting, to reach out to more partners, You can use your skills to help scouting has a better legal advice, and etc. etc. Depends what your skills are. But I fully agree with you wrapped it up very nicely, Param. Thank you.
Mr. Abdul Hadi.
Doran, we have 3 more questions. You can look at that.
Yes, individual growth on parallel with organizational growth certainly helps organization. Yeah, this is more as a statement. I would agree. Individual growth is a key role for the development of the organization, but more important is given to individual growth rather than organizational growth. I would say that this is not once against another, and we should not say that we give attention to organizational growth. If organizational growth is driven individual growth, and individual growth is driven organizational. If we say, look, all together, let's work on the growth of Barrett Scouts and Guides. Let's every one of us saying what we need to do. Let's build a strategy. Through this process of growing Barrett Scouts and Guides, each of us will learn something new. Each of us will grow personally through this journey of growth for our organization. And we will learn new skills. We will meet new people. We will build new understandings. We will widen our horizons and learn something new. So for sure we will grow. So the organizational growth is the one who is driven the individual growth. And it's vice versa. We as individuals, when we are growing, and this is why having a growth environment is very important in organization. As individual, when we are growing, we are taking the organization with us. So I think that this is going parallel. And last one is governmental machineries should come forward to support the organization, providing funds and other resources for its growth. I would agree. There is, so if a government is not doing this, we need to make them see why scouting is important for them, and we need to communicate. And this is why we are having these sessions. This is why we are working this project on growth. We need to everyone recognize the amazing work that you're doing for the young people in India, and we need to learn how to sell our product and how to sell ourselves in order to get what we deserve.
I'd like to add to that, Goran.
Yes, please.
Yeah, with regards to the last question with the funding from the government missionaries, I think from the last webinar communication of what you're doing, you all have done a good job currently. Recently, BSG has been recognized by the government by putting you all on the frontliners and all. So it's a good start. So you all should capitalize on this to approach other government missionaries and talk to them, share your stories, tell your success stories, and ask them for these funds. Because probably if you're not asking, they're not going to give. There are a lot of other people who are asking. So you should make the first move to go forward. They are not going to come and offer you these things. So you have already established a good rapport now with the current pandemic. The things that you all been doing has already been recognized by the government. And this is a good time for you all to move forward and show what you all are made of. Thank you. Thank you, Goran.
Thank you. Okay.
Karan, I would like to add that the support from government machinery comes as a result of how the Scout Association put itself in front of the government. The three things which we noticed in Bara Scouts and Guides is, one is the Ministry of Forest and Environment supports the Rajasthan Scouts, because that is a desert in our country, and their output on tree plantation was recognized by the government, so they come up with the funds. Similarly, when we had natural calamities in the Uttarakhand, the Scouts and Guides used the ham radio operators to help the governance and the management of the people during the crisis. Government recognized and they provided resources to train more ham trainers. So when we expect support from government, we have to show how useful we are. So they come back and help us. So we cannot just think like we ask for donations like things for grants. We may not get the support of the government. That is what we need to function as an organization. We need to show our results. So they will come and they will support us.
I think you have a very valid point, and this is usually how it goes. The recognition, someone needs to recognize you, and then it's supporting you. What I would just urge that we create as a goal for ourselves is that we don't stay and we don't get satisfied to be recognized after we do something, but we also encourage governments to invest for future. Before crisis happen, imagine if they have a emergency response youth organization in each community they want to reach. This is not something you can do it after the pandemic appear. It is much smarter for a country to invest that this is a universal emergency relief, a universal education based movement across all the communities. And it is investment that in any case for them it's attractive. And we need to keep reaching out more than what is just the recognition and encouraging the government to invest in future, to grow and to make sure that scouting is in each community, so it can be in the end also for their on their disposal and on their service, because scouting is always on service of the community. If I can suggest just on the Padlet, I can see already we have more than 100 inputs, which makes me very happy. Oops. I would like you now to take the time to go through the Padlet and see your colleagues' inputs. And firstly, maybe you will inspire yourself. You can give a comment. You can press the heart, which means that you love this comment and you love this idea. And take these 3 minutes to see what are all the inputs that have been provided there. Meanwhile, while you're doing this, you can keep putting questions, you can give comments. I will also share the resource which Param presented, and this is on the good governance in national board. It is from the first pillar. It is something which can be very useful. And if you just give me a second. I wanted also to show where it is. But you will be able to see it in the chat in a few seconds. So here in the chat now you have the link to the service page. I will also share my screen just to show you this service page. This is the good governance service page on scout.org webpage. And here you can see several layers: financial management, strategical planning and monitoring and evaluation, institutional and constitutional processes, and good governance as a general one. If you remember, we talked about the 3 pillars. Here in the good governance, you can find the resources for how to make sure you have a good national boards. And this can be replicated to state boards, for committees, for any governance body, any leadership. Use this toolkit. It's super fresh. Just 2 weeks ago, it's been published. So use this as something if you want to reflect on how you can make your leadership more effective. There is a lot of other resources there on how to create an induction training for the national board, survival strategies, and from other resources. In the strategical planning and evaluation is the part where it's the third pillar of the good governance, how to make sure you are having a good strategy and how to bring the strategy planning to each level of your organization. So again, a lot of nice resources, highly recommend you if you have time, just go and check them out. If you like them, please use it. And the third is the institutional and constitutional support. There is here a manual which can be interesting, and it can be, you can find also the statute and the code of conduct, which can be inspiring things for setting a procedure. And here we will be working on adding additional resources that can be for your interest for policies and procedures. I'm back at the Padlet. I see you already started. So I want to just explain what will happen with this Padlet. Is we're looking at this resource and based answers.
Webinar is happening. Tell me
How we might shape webinars, particularly in a
what is this problem?
Resources to share with you, and finally, the most important, your comments and how we support your work on growth in your states together with the National Growth Plan. If there is a few questions before we go back to the presentation, now is the time. I see one input: governance is always used in a plural sense. So what measures should be taken by the head of an institution for collaborative work for good governance? That really matters. Can you explain it? So the question, to be very specific, is what measures should be taken by the head of an organization for collaborative work for good governance? Is there any of my colleagues who want to give input on this question? Okay, I can answer it with from my perspective. As you said, so the ultimate responsibility that we have a good board, it is in the head of the institution. So this is the chair or the president of the board, the committee chair. Regardless how we name it, it's the one who is being usually elected or appointed to make sure to steer the work of the board. So what measures should be taken is I would present these 8 pillars of good governance to this person, and it is his responsibility to make sure that we are addressing each of them. So in its work in the national, on the chair of the national board, he needs to make sure that he is addressing all these 8. And it can be like a checklist. Okay, are we effective? Are we making a consensus? Do we share our decisions with stakeholders? Have we involved stakeholders? Do we have a good processes of financial control? No? Let's develop one. Do we have a strategy? That will be probably one of the first things. If we don't have a strategy, we need to build one. We need to build a monitoring. So it is driven and putting on the discussion these 8 concepts of good governance and making sure that the national board or the committees are working upon them and tasking the operational bodies to deliver and work on this. So that would be my easiest answer. It's maybe simple, but yes, it is making sure that the 8 concepts of the good governance are being taken in consideration and being implemented. Okay, I see no more questions coming in. So the Padlet will stay open. We really don't have the time to go through all of the inputs that you provided, but as I said, we will use this as a resource to continue back. Okay, thank you for this. I really enjoyed all these discussions and questions. We will be coming back shortly. Just we are almost at the end of this session. So just allow me to share my screen to go back to the PowerPoint presentation. And come back with the final slide as a way of a conclusion. And then I see a raising hand, so we will use the rest of the time to answer more questions. So if you remember on the beginning, we started with this: what makes an organization strong? And we told that then we had highlighted in red the aspects that we are covering as a key ingredients, which now on these slides they're not. Now on these slides you will see something which is being covered in red, and this is the governance framework. So, and the integrity management, the resources allocation, and the continuous improvement. This is what the governance is making sure we are taking with us, and we are building our organization to have a good and solid foundation for us to grow. Good framework, organization which is structured in a good way, lot of procedures, not lot of procedures. We don't need to have millions of procedures. We need to have good procedures which are easy to implement and follow, which will secure our integrity and that we are working right by the law and by the values and the principles of scouting. Good resource allocation, support going up to the local groups, because that is where we are going to grow, and making sure we work on strengthening financially and resourcefully our organization, and continuously improving and continuously working to grow. This is the end of this presentation. As I shared, this is the first very general overview of good governance, the 3 pillars. I hope you remember them now, and I hope you understand how you can address and how we can work on good governance in your respective state or on a national level. We are here to be supporting you. The resources that I share can be very useful. Look at them. If you want to explore all of these 10 dimensions, also take time to look at the global assessment tool. I will share this resource as well in the end, which can help you for individually of these 10 dimensions, understand how you can work on concrete actions to improve your organization. That is all for me. I give back now the floor to Madhu, or if there is questions, I am here to give my contribution and maybe answers.
There is one question, Gaurav, before this is from Dr. Jayashree Nanda. Governance is always...
Madhu, that has been answered, Madhu. That has been answered.
I don't see any question.
It's a wonderful question. I think it should be answered again if it has not been done so. Or if the question, Jayashree Nanda, are you, did you get the answer already, or you really need an answer? Mr. Nanda? Are they unmute already? Not yet.
No, not yet. Yeah.
So can you give Nanda to...
So she's a ranger letter from Odisha.
Mm-hmm. The question here is, what measures should be taken by the head of an institution for collaborative work for good governance? So, Swamiji, what is the answer?
Sir, Goran has explained this with the different dimensions of the good governance,
Mm-hmm.
and the head of institution to see that these points are well taken and it is circulated in a team and by any name, what they call it as a chairman or the head of the institution or
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
So that has
Uh,
been answered by Goran.
Goran, you wanted to give a summarized answer, or you want me to do it and you will supplement?
Can I, Prasanna, can I just again add up and I will finish because I answered it, but I see that maybe. So what I answered is, and Prasanna, I would value also your input. I would appreciate it. Is that the role of the head of the national board is to make sure that the board is being organized in a good way to implement its role. So first, to help everyone understand what their role is. Secondly, to enable an environment for all these people in the board to work towards good governance. And if you remember, these are the slide. This is the slide that I was referring previously. I will share my screen again. You see my screen?
Yes, Goran.
So these are the 8 concepts. So so making sure that all this is being put it in consideration. Reflecting on the legal and regulatory framework, if we are doing properly, if we are checking if we are doing properly. We might been doing properly 20 years ago, but have we checked if our organization is being aligned with the current legal and regulatory framework? Organizational structure, policy and procedures. So making good policy and procedures is one of the key roles of the national board. The head of the national board to make sure that the board is doing this properly and is hearing the stakeholders in this process. Monitoring and internal control, transparency, accountability, organizing a general assembly, making sure the reports are available and public for
Goran, are you there? Goran, are you there?
effective and finally to be inclusive and consensus oriented. What I wanted to say that if you are really interested in this, again, I will go back to the resource that I shared in the beginning. That is the one that Param presented, and this is it about the good governance toolkit. In this good governance for national board, you will find answers on what is the role of the national board, what is the role of the chair of the national board, how he can facilitate good governance, what is team chart, and there is a lot of tools that chair or president of national board to make his team work efficiently and practice good governance. Prasanna, over to you.
Thank you, Goran. I think you have very well explained, Goran, the elements of good governance. And I think Dr. Nanda should have got the answer of it now. So Dr. Nanda, basically that is what is required. If I understand, you are from Orissa, and that should be the working culture of the state chief commissioner and his team to ensure that all those elements are working, and the board makes sure that your executive body has those elements there, because I think that's the real answer. So Goran, you have very well explained the elements of good governance with any head of the institution has to take. If the commitment of the head of the institution is not in line with those elements, it's very difficult to have good governance in an organization, because that gives the head of the organization to deal fairly with each and everyone within the movement, within the organization, within the Scout Association. So thank you, Goran. I think that's the right answer for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prasanna. And I would like you to answer, to have your opinion on the very interesting question which just arrived. Whether centralization or decentralization helps good governance.
I think I will need support from Param as well as Goran. But for me, when you say good centralization or decentralization, ideally it is said that people should be empowered within the organization to undertake their responsibilities. And that is a very good example of the decentralization. But at some point of time in an organization, there will be situations like this COVID-19 or any this kind of emergency services where head of the institution has to centralize the powers for a particular period of time. But make sure that if you need a good governance, it should be decentralized, and it should be people should be empowered within the organization to undertake their responsibilities. If there is a situation which arises where you have to centralize the powers and have to take actions, that is only in emergency cases, and then immediately you have to release it. It cannot be for a long term. It has to be for a short term if you want to make sure that good governance is alive in the organization. A very simple example, all of you are members of the WhatsApp, and what happens at some point of time, suddenly an admin says only admins are allowed to upload that, because when an emergency comes up and he sees that many people are unnecessary posting things which will dilute the great matter which has been discussed on the WhatsApp group, the admins stops everybody else and takes power in it. So that's centralized. But once it is done, that the issue has been resolved, then he again opens up everybody to upload. So I think that's a good example for that. Goran, you can supplement.
I think you covered it quite good. Thank you, Param. I think that it's not, or it's the question is, if you have a good governance, if you're practicing governance, the model can be equally successful. You can have a fully centralized organization. If they are effectively practicing good governance, they will be equally successful as fully decentralized. Just you need to have the context in place that having working on good governance is not something which you do it once and then it's there. You get a diploma, you put it on the wall, and you are always working on good governance. It is a ongoing, continuous process. So making sure making sure you have a robust structure, it is very important for having a good governance. What I imagine, and this can be some topic for next sessions. Imagine like it's an exercise. Imagine that you don't have any structure now in the moment. Like you have a white paper, you have millions and millions of scouts in India, and millions of young people are about to become scouts in India. What would the organization would look like if you're building it today? Forget everything about what you know on how Bharat Scouts and Guides are structured. So this is a hard questions that from time to time national board should make sure that are happening and that they're consulting the organization, our constituents, the members, because they are the ones that we are working. So we are service-oriented organization. Our products are given to the members. So we should make sure that we centralize it or decentralize our organization as a response to this. Usually decentralization comes for better measurement, and good governance is very often linked with the decentralization because it brings support structures to the groups closer to them. It brings more inclusivity in decision making and autonomy in decision making. So by some understanding, it is taken for granted that decentralization can be a good governance. But there is exceptions, and if again it is about how we are doing it, if it's not about if we are doing it on one place or in 10 places.
I'd like to add to Mr. Prasanna and Goran's comments. In addition to what they said, I think What we need to have also is proper bylaws or SOPs or term of reference for this decentralization. As long as you have that, be it centralized or decentralized, they have a proper set of regulations to follow, what they can do, what they can't do, and to what extent is their powers. Then the governance part will automatically work well because you have the procedures and policies in place, be it bylaws or SOPs or whatever, be it in any level. So I think that is also important, because if you don't have that, and if it's decentralized and they do whatever they want to do, that's where the problem starts. There must be some sort of a regulatory document for them to have control of what lies. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Param. Thank you very much, Goran. I think Indu Balaji, I would suggest if we all just concentrate on the elements around the good governance areas, you don't have to worry for anything else, whether centralized or decentralized. Your organization will run. It will be on a 140 speed running. But because if you start talking about all these things, you will get confused and you will mixed up with the elements. So because centralized or decentralized, it will automatically, when you take the elements, the leader will have to follow the elements, and once the leader follows the elements, the style of governing or style of the leadership will be followed by those elements. And so I would suggest everyone that instead of bringing any confusions in your mind, if you all believed in those elements that Goran has just shared with all of you, see whether that exists in your organization, whether state level or district level or the national level. If they exist, you will be moving towards good governance if you are not there. But if you don't believe in that and you will start uh, thinking, oh, never mind, this element can pass by, then you will always find a leakage or will find some challenge in establishing good governance in the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think now we don't have any further questions. Now I would like for the final remarks from Mr.
Madhu, somehow your voice is little low.
Maybe the bandwidth. Promise of final remarks from you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Goren and Paramji, for a very informative presentation on good governance. Everything depends on how we govern ourselves as an organization to reach out our targets. We have everything in place, and if we cannot manage them or govern them, we end up with no results. Today, we are happy to see that more friends from other NSOs also joining us in the webinar. Today, brothers from Taiwan and Singapore also joined us. That means governance is an issue all over the NSOs, and learning is a never-ending process. So we thank WOSAM for the consultancy services to empower all the NSOs. Though the media may be growth for Bharat Scouts and Guides, it empowers a lot of our trainers, district level and state level officials who are attending these webinars. We thank every one of you for joining. Please take note of the links provided to you. We are on the YouTube, and we also have provided links of webinars of the previous webinars and the upcoming webinar on adult in scouting. Let's together learn and win. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Madhu, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Now, for the information of the state growth coordinators, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, we have our regular meeting. The link will be shared to you by 7:30 p.m. tonight. Come prepared for tomorrow's meeting. It will be from 10 o'clock to 11:30. It is a meeting for 90 minutes. And for the information of everybody, the next webinar is on Adults in Scouting for Growth. This will happen on the Monday. Once you leave this meeting, you will find the link to join and register for this webinar. Whoever is attending the webinar on Adults in Scouting, you need to complete an e-learning course on the life cycle of Adults in Scouting. Once you complete that e-learning course, you get a certificate, and that will be the foundation for you to enjoy and participate in full during that webinar. So I request you all to kindly complete this e-learning course on Adults in Scouting life cycle. You will get this link on your email when you register for the webinar. You will get a link to this e-learning course, so it will be easy for you to get in there.